Welcome into Seattle Seahawks Today. I am your host, Tom Downey. Unfortunately, with another Seahawks loss in the books, this time against the LA Rams. And it's not even the defense's fault, at least as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if you had told me, hey, the Rams are going to score 23 points, I would have been like, oh, the Seahawks won by at least a touchdown? And it was the exact opposite this time today as Seattle comes up short. Russell Wilson, who we'll dive into in just a second, turns the ball over 3 times in this game. So before we dive in depth, I want to get your guys' instant reaction. Using only one word, describe how you feel about today's loss. Disappointing, I think maybe surprising, concerning could be another one as well. But give me your one-word reaction to today's loss for Seattle. Maybe the most troubling part to me is that this is now another game in which Russ Wilson didn't bring his best stuff. Now, look, Wilson this year, I'm not changing the way I feel. He's been awesome. This game, though, this is not on the MVP highlight reel. And this is actually going to have a negative impact, I think, substantially on his MVP hopes and dreams. 2 interceptions, was also sacked 6 times, not all of which were his fault. I mean, the one late game one by Michael Brockers where he just blew through, I think it was Jamarco Jones. That's tough to blame on Wilson, but he did take another sack here. His quarterback rating was low. Back-to-back games now, Wilson has not had his best stuff. And that is troubling because the way this Seahawks team is built, and it's not always fair to Russ, but he has to have his best stuff in order to win football games. So now with Seattle dropping back-to-back games, and now, as we'll get into later on in today's video, no longer in first place in the NFC West, what's your panic level at right now for Seattle? Rate this for me on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you're not panicking at all, 10 being you're freaking out and you think they're about to completely collapse. So, I'm going to make that the pinned comment, by the way. DK Metcalf, let's talk about him here. Non-factor in this particular game. Jalen Ramsey really held him in check. Metcalf had no catches inside the first half. 4 targets, 2 receptions, 28 yards. That was it. And they had to, I think, challenge one of those catches they ended up pulling in there. Metcalf didn't have his best stuff. That, and again, part of that's Jalen Ramsey. The offense in general just seemed a little bit out of sync, especially in the passing game. But that's troubling because DK Metcalf, you hope, as I think he's proven so far this year, maybe take a few more shots deep downfield to him when it was just Ramsey versus Metcalf. I get why they didn't, but I was hoping for a bigger game out of Metcalf. I had hoped he'd be coming close to being matchup-proof, and clearly that was not the case in this particular game. Very much held in check by the Rams and by number 1 corner Jalen Ramsey. Now, we had our Seahawks, bet cover guarantee. The final spread was Rams 2.5. It was all over the place. Doesn't really matter. However you bet in this game, if you bet on the Seahawks to cover, they did not do that. So that is my fault on that one. Now, this is only as a reminder, eligible to those who signed up with BetUS. You guys who went to chatsports.com/bet, used promo code Seahawks125. Sorry if the bet came up short, but that's why you have the 125% deposit bonus. And for those of you who bet on the Seahawks to cover and they did not do so, we're going to take care of you guys. Email us at Seahawks@chatsports.com. Just provide us your account ID and also include a screenshot of your bet and all that we can verify it. Up to $50, whatever you bet and lost, we're going to cover you guys. Email us, Seahawks@chatsports.com. It will take us some time to respond to everybody, but just include your account ID, include your screenshot there. Seahawks@chatsports.com. Email us today. Let's talk defense now for the Seahawks. 23 points allowed, under 400 yards. Pretty good. Only the one takeaway. You lost the takeaway battle in large part because of the fact that, hey, you had some issues overall in terms of your offense. The troubling part here for me on this defense was they were 10 of 16 on 3rd and 4th downs in terms of the Rams converted 10 of the 16 opportunities. That's not very good. That is below what you want. And Jared Goff didn't put up his best game ever, although he did put up a very nice 96.9 quarterback rating. 27 of 37, 302 yards. There were 3 sacks they took that brought down the total passing yards below 300 because that's how the NFL counts sacks. In the end, the defense wasn't the problem today. And that is, I think, a good thing for the Seahawks. But it is still kind of like, of course, the one game in which the defense holds the opposing team under 25 points, the offense doesn't really show up. So what are your guys' thoughts? We've asked this before. Maybe it's changed your mind a little bit here. What to do with Ken Norton here? Type F for fire or type in K for keep. What do you think the Seahawks should do? Get your votes in here. Again, it's F for fire or K for keep. Let's talk injury now here. Chris Carson held out this week, or I should say today, against the LA Rams. There was the report from ESPN, though, that Carson will play next week. In fact, Adam Schefter said it was absolutely is what he was told about Carson playing next week. With Carson out, Alex Collins, because time is a flat circle and he's back in Seattle, he was the feature back this week. I think getting back Carson, though, playing it safe, even though it was a loss this week, will be a nice boost for Seattle. He's been good this year in a contract year. 66 carries, 323 yards. Do the math, that's almost 5 yards per carry. 3 touchdowns as well. And Alex Collins by no means was bad this week, but he averaged less than 4 yards per carry. It's almost a full yard per touch difference. That does tend to add up. Had a really nice touchdown run. I think that is important to mention, but Alex Collins clearly is not as good as Chris Carson. I think that's very clear. So getting back Carson, in theory, will be a big deal. I had taken my shot and said, yeah, this is the week Carson's back, because injuries continue to just send me astray when it comes to the Seahawks team. I feel like I've been wrong on almost every single one because Adams missed way more time than we expected. But we're always going to try and keep you guys covered on everything going on around the Seahawks. So if you want more Seahawks videos, then just subscribe. Hit that big red button and join the fastest growing Seahawks YouTube channel out there. If you're watching on Facebook or something else, it's youtube.com/SeahawksTV. But just hit that big red button and subscribe today. Let's check in now on the NFC West, where things have changed. Technically speaking, a 3-way tie at the top. The tiebreakers, though, as they get taken into effect, it is the Cardinals over the Rams, and the Rams over the Seahawks, head-to-head, and NFC West play being a significant factor in that. So the Seahawks have gone from being the number 1 seed in the NFC not that long ago to now being the number 2 wildcard team from the NFC West. On the bright side, however, things are finally going to get a little bit easier. This has been a pretty rough stretch. Now, they got one more very tough game coming up against Arizona. Short week, Thursday Night Football. Arizona riding high after that miracle finish. Murray to Metcalf to beat the Buffalo Bills. But then a very manageable stretch. Sunday Night Football against the Eagles. They look pretty bad. The Giants just beat Philadelphia. We know they're pretty bad. The lowly Jets and Washington. So even if Seattle can't win this upcoming game against Arizona, even though at home I actually think they're going to, that should be 4 straight wins in a row. That gets them to double-digit wins. Historically speaking, especially with the added playoff spot, that's going to be enough for them to make the postseason. But that game against Arizona is going to have massive implications about actually winning the NFC West. So get your votes in here. Put on your thinking caps and predict for me. Do you still think Seattle will win the NFC West? Type in your Y for yes, or you can type in your N for no. It's going to come down to the wire, and this upcoming game against Arizona, borderline must win for Seattle if they want to win the division. Let's talk Jamal Adams now, who did briefly leave the game against the Rams, was called questionable to return with a shoulder injury. Honestly, didn't look right at first when he came back, and then Pete Carroll came over and talked to him on the sidelines, and whatever Pete Carroll said got Jamal Adams back to playing the way we anticipate and expect him to play. 7 tackles this week, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, a very well-timed strip sack of Jared Goff as well. Adams, I don't think, looked right early. He was able to recover and put up a pretty good game. Again, he's such a good blitzer. He is almost a linebacker playing a disguised safety position. But in a secondary that has been decimated by injuries, especially at corner as of late, getting Jamal Adams back and not having him miss any time, even though it was a loss, certainly doesn't have me panicking, because if Adams had left this game and not returned, oh boy, I would have been concerned. But he looks fine. Hopefully the coverage issues that the entire Seahawks team has right now get sorted out sooner rather than later.